We are just hours away from kickoff in Kansas City, where the Patriots will truly be tested. I'm Mariah Janos, joined by Evan Lazar. Evan, the moment Cam Newton tested positive, this game became controversial, whether or not it should even happen. But it's happening, despite all odds. Do you think this is an unnecessary risk playing this game?
I think it's a slippery slope because on one hand, we are Patriots reporters and we sit here and we say this is unfair, this is not right. Well, where were we when the Titans played their game or Atlanta played their game with positive tests, right? So it's definitely a slippery slope of how much is this the homer in me that says, this is unfair because they don't have their starting quarterback against the defending Super Bowl champions. But I think at the end of the day, looking at it from a player safety angle, this is truly a risk by the NFL solely because they are trying to avoid a Week 18 situation. That's the obvious decision here, would be to make sort of a COVID flex week at the end of the season. Week 18 is what most people would probably call it, where when there are games that need to be postponed due to outbreaks or due to positive tests, you just push the game into January and you play that one at the end of the year and you take a week off to reset and make sure everybody is healthy. That would have been the obvious solution to this game. But I think the biggest issue is the NFL doesn't want to set a precedent that they're just going to keep on postponing games, because then eventually, okay, we have a week 18, now we have a week 19, now we have a week 20, and all of a sudden we're playing football into March, which is something that the NFL obviously wants to avoid. So they're taking the risk here. They have done 2 series of tests. One, kind of lab testing that gets sent out to a lab. Everybody's tested negative in that one. Everybody tested negative this morning before the Patriots got on the plane on the rapid test. But at the same time, we know about the incubation period. We know the medical history. All of us are sort of experts on this virus by now. And it can take days for somebody to pop up on a test that they're positive for COVID. So the Titans, for example, they had their coach test positive. 2 days later, the first kind of group tested positive. Then 3 days after that was when the floodgates sort of opened. So this can be a week-long process, and the NFL is definitely taking a risk here.
Today's segment is powered by CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company. Call 800-CAR-6000 and mention the code BEAT, or go to carshield.com and enter the promo code BEAT for 10% off. That's carshield.com, promo code BEAT. Now, back to the COVID discussion. As you mentioned, it can take days to get a positive result. Say the Patriots come back from Arrowhead Stadium, they all get tested. Someone is test positive. What do you think the snowball effect is from there?
Well, I think the biggest thing and the biggest issue that you run into if you're the NFL is that you need to have the trust of the players, right? You need to the players need to believe that the NFL has their best interest at heart and has their safety top of mind, especially in this particular season. So that is sort of a slippery slope, I think, for the league, because if that ends up happening, if that scenario plays out, which is certainly something that's a worst case scenario, if that happens, then the other 31 teams need to look in the mirror and say, does the league office actually care about our health and safety? And are we actually getting tested properly? And are the protocols going far enough? And should we be worried about this moving forward? So that's sort of the tricky situation I think the NFL is running into right now with this risk that they are taking, is that if this backfires on them, they risk losing the entire league. And I'm not trying to incite panic or anything like that, but we are talking about a scenario that if there is an outbreak in New England, like there was an outbreak in Tennessee, that we could be talking about pausing the season in a couple of days, because at some point in time, back in March, the Jazz, Rudy Gobert tested positive, and instantly one team had it and the league paused, right? Almost instantly. I would not be surprised that if another outbreak like Tennessee happens, if that has to be something that's on the table a little bit more seriously than it is right now. Right now, the NFL is taking the full speed ahead approach, whatever it takes, no matter what happens, sort of what the MLB did. And that's kind of what they're going to go by. But eventually it's going to be a situation where the league and the Players Association are going to be at odds extremely, arguing with each other a lot about the safety of the players. And I think there's still some players in New England right now that are a little bit kind of, skeptical about this entire game tonight too.
Absolutely. Evan Lazar spitting facts right there. For all of our Patriots coverage, you can find it on our website at clnsmedia.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Patriots Press Pass.